So I think it's time that we stop calling the squad a squad because they're not. So I have an article from The Intercept that details the situation. So the squad splits on Capitol Police funding, letting bill pass by one vote. So three progressive Democrats voted no on a 1.9 $1 billion bill in funding for the Capitol Police, while AOC, Jamal Bowman, and Rashida Tlaib voted present. So the article from The Intercept details the House of Representatives on Thursday approved an expanded budget for the U.S. Capitol Police in a supplemental piece of legislation that passed by a single vote. Democratic reps Cori Bush of Missouri, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, and Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts voted to take the measure down. But Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jamal Bowman of New York, along with Representative Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, voted present. I am tired of the fact that any time where there is a failure in our system of policing, the first response is for us to give them more money rather than investigate their failings and hold those responsible accountable. Omar told The Intercept, explaining her vote. I'll continue to fight for structural change that actually centers people's safety and humanity. That applies to us here in the Capitol as well as my constituents in Minneapolis. That's a very good response from Ilhan Omar as to her reasoning on why she voted no. Extremely practical. Hats off to her. The measure approved by a 213 to 212 vote included $1.9 billion for the Capitol Police and Capitol Security requested by the police after they failed to secure the building during January 6th protest turned riot. So the article goes on to point out that the supplemental included uncontroversial items such as funding for accrued overtime and mental health counseling, but the broader measure raised fundamental questions about accountability and the permanent creep of security forces that have turned the U.S. Capitol into a fortress. The bill would harden entrances to the Capitol and include funding for rapid response. Just to give you a little bit more, the bill includes $350 million for complex emergency response and infrastructure, which includes $100 million for security, screening, vestibules. It offers $720 million for the National Guard and Department of Defense, $157 million for judiciary security, $67 million for the District of Columbia. And I won't go through all the details of this specific bill, but overwhelmingly, obviously, just looking at it at face value, this is a no for me. This is a no. Whenever there's a quote-unquote problem with the police in this country, it seems that, and by the way, not a single Republican supported this bill. By the way, not a single House Republican voted yay on this bill. It was all nay votes from them. But every time there's a problem, like what happened on January the 6th, or whenever an unarmed black person or any unarmed person gets killed by the police, the solution from our politicians is to always shower them with dough. I don't get it. It's the same thing with the military. We go across the world. Our military does, not us, but our military does. And they commit these grand atrocities on a scale of which you've never seen. Some of the worst atrocities in history. I mean, the Iraq War is easily the worst atrocity of the 21st century. I mean, it's absolutely insane what we do. And every single year, they continuously vote to increase the military budget. Why? Why is this their only course of action when it comes to these things? It's like this is all they can do, instead of maybe taking away funding, which is something that a lot of advocates for things like defund the police are for, right? Like when you look underneath the slogan, now the slogan itself is unpopular, but when you actually look at what they're advocating for, they say, okay, well, let's take some funding away and let's demilitarize the police and do other things that would actually help the people that actually have to involve themselves with the police. But the politicians, their only answer is, let's give them more money, let's give them more guns, let's give them more personnel, more military vehicles, more Humvees, more machine guns of death that can destroy an entire city. It's absolutely, let's give them more riot shields and more gear. It's like, what are you preparing them for? Like, what is all of this even for? It's funny because we have all the laws in place And we have all the funding already to these different police institutions around the country to ensure that nothing goes too awry. We do. But actually, one could argue that we have too many laws. We're much too restrictive, which is why maybe some of the crime happens that maybe wouldn't happen if certain laws weren't in place. Such as the demonization of marijuana and other drugs. The drug war is a thing, and it disproportionately affects minorities, black people in particular. And if we if we ended the drug war and legalized marijuana, among other drugs, certain problems we see in this country, we wouldn't see, right? But no, they are very staunch on those positions, and every time there's an outbreak, of social justice or what have you, when a person gets killed by the police, their only solution is to throw more money at them. Now I turn my attention to the squad. There were 3 present votes and 3 no votes, and I believe some of the squad voted yes for it. What the fuck is the point of you being a squad? Like, where's the communication? Where's the strategizing? When George Floyd was killed, every member of the squad came out crusading, and rightfully so, criticizing police departments all over the country for their abhorrent tactics, and Derek Chauvin and many others for their contributions to George Floyd's death. And they did the same thing for Breonna Taylor. They did the same thing for Jacob Blake, among many others. Cori Bush in particular, I believe, is the only congressperson that has actually taken up the slogan, defund the police, and she voted no, which is good. But they couldn't reach out to their colleagues and explain to them, like, hey, if we actually want things to change, we can't continue to support bills like this. It reminds me of the Democrats giving Donald Trump the green light to increase NSA spying. It's absolutely insane. So you're supposed to be the opposition party, but you're giving this guy the green light. You're voting in favor of increasing NSA spying, violating Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. You're voting in agreement of increasing the military budget. Bipartisan support is not always good. And that's this thing that pisses me off to no end, is that you have Joe Biden, among many other corporate Democrats, that are like, we have to do bipartisanship and all this other bullshit. Well, it's not good when bipartisanship is along the lines of endless war, or increasing your ability to spy on your own citizens, or giving our police force in this country, who have shown to not be the most righteous of people, even more money in cash. The squad is no longer a squad. There's an adequate question as to if they've ever actually been a squad, and it's been exemplified on many occasions, and this one is just the latest.